Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Tuesday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields, heard on radio stations all across the state, including Mount Pleasant, Petoskey, Traverse City, Hastings, Lansing, Saginaw, Manistee, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Ludington, Muskegon, and Benton Harbor, where everybody is expecting to be a multimillionaire tonight. Anticipation growing. The Mega Millions jackpot is worth $330 million, and that's turned over 15 times now without a winner. 11 p.m. Eastern time tonight is when the numbers are drawn. The odds of walking away with all that cash are astronomical, but, you might want to buy a ticket and invite yourself to the party because it's the only way you're going to win. Your odds are 1 in 175 million, and the Mega Millions is played in 41 states plus the District of Columbia. But don't forget, somebody wins. Somebody wins. Somebody beats those odds. If not, it rolls over, and we have a bigger jackpot on Friday. So if you've got that money spent, come and see me because I've got the winning ticket already in my pocket. Gary Austin, our anchorman, the Republicans in the House of Representatives are going to introduce legislation attempting to repeal the federal health care reform law. However, it seems to me it's kind of folly because the Democratic senators have already written a letter to John Boehner, the incoming House Speaker, saying they're going to block the legislation if it passes the House. So It would be a sort of symbolic effort, wouldn't it?
Well, the Republicans said during the course of the campaign, that this is something that they were going to make job one when they took over. Now, whether or not they're going to be successful, that's another story, but they promised they would try, and that's what they're going to do. But we've heard Fred Upton on Fox News Sunday and new Attorney General Bill Schuette on your program yesterday, making it clear they're going to fight this thing. And they figure they can kind of piecemeal their way through. And we've heard some Republicans say if they can't shut it down with an overall vote, they're just going to deny funding for it. Anytime an individual vote, for example, comes up on a piece of the new federal health care plan, they're going to vote no. And they have the votes this time to do it. Last year they didn't. Now they do. Now, how successful they'll be in dismantling the whole thing remains to be seen.
One of the guys who probably agrees is the Republican National Committee Chair, Michael Steele, and he faced off against his challengers. They're having a debate over who will run the Republican Party. And so he's saying in the debate yesterday that when he began his job in 2009, we couldn't find anyone to say they were a Republican, let alone run. And things have changed quickly, haven't they, in 2 years or even less than that? Now, there are 5 other candidates who want the job as the Republican National Committee Chair. One of them is former Michigan Republican Chair Saul Anusis, who you hear on this program very often. And in this debate yesterday, here is what's one of the things that Saul Anusis has said when he was making his points.
We stopped voting like Republicans, we stopped acting like Republicans, and we stopped talking about the issues that the American public believed in. This is a center-right nation. This is a country that believes in our fundamental conservative principles. When we act and talk and work like Republicans, we win. When we start acting and voting like Democrats, we lose. So I think our biggest problem over the last 10 years is we stopped acting like Republicans. We lost faith and belief in the fact that we are a conservative party and we represent conservative principles, and therefore we paid the price for it. And this time around, we got a second chance. That's all it is. It's a second chance and an opportunity for Republicans to start acting like Republicans, or the voters will throw us out again.
Man, he is dead on right about that. So many conservatives were turned off when Republicans started getting too moderate, and it showed in recent polling data. However, the last time, I think many conservatives simply got so fed up, in their opinion, with what's going on in Washington today, with all the spending, they said, yes, we're going to give them one more chance. And they turned out in droves, led by, to a large degree, their friends in the Tea Party. So, yeah, Saul Anusis is right. It's time to make good on those promises. And if Republicans don't, like we've heard politicians say, they'll vote them out in 2 years and start all over again.
You know, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it's hard not to root for Saul Anusis from Michigan to become the National Committee Chair, just to keep putting Michigan in the forefront of the national issues. For instance, in Congress, we have a number of committee chairs from Michigan, including Congressman Mike Rogers and others. And so, anyway, we'll keep an eye on that for you. It's kind of insider politics for the Republican Party as to who will lead the National Party. But I understand now, here closer to home, we have a big news happening in the state government, and that is that Michigan Supreme Court Justice Maura Corrigan is going to quit and become head of the state's welfare agency under the new governor, Rick Snyder. Likely, Corrigan would leave the court by January 14th. Corrigan is 62 years old, a conservative, been on the court since 1999, was Chief Justice for 4 years. And Corrigan's departure means that the new Governor Snyder is going to pick his first Supreme Court justice just days into his administration. The court's going to meet on Wednesday to discuss some cases and select a Chief Justice. But there's a little shuffling going on and a chance for Rick Snyder to add someone to the Michigan Supreme Court.
It's true, and obviously Maura Corrigan making her announcement at a time when Rick Snyder was firmly in place, something she was not going to do, clearly when Governor Granholm still had the job, because obviously she wants to make sure Snyder makes the appointment and not Snyder's predecessor. So, yeah, it'll be curious to see who Rick Snyder comes up with there.
Rick Snyder, just on the heels of his inauguration, wants the state lawmakers to deliver a 2-year state budget. He wants that by July 1st. Now, as I recall, last year Governor Granholm asked for a budget also by July 1st. But in this case, Snyder wants a 2-year budget, and he wants no tax hikes in the budget. Now, they've got a shortfall of $1.85 billion to deal with. But this is what he's asking for. He wants to show some efficiency. And he's not going to accept, by the way, the full pay, I guess. He gets $159,300 as governor. He didn't say how much less he's going to be paid, but he's going to tell us later, but he doesn't want the whole chunk of change.
That is very interesting. And, of course, Rick Snyder going in, compared to what Governor Granholm had to work with, I mean, Rick Snyder, he's got a clean slate, and he's got Republicans, on both sides of the aisle. So the odds of Rick Snyder out of the gate getting what he wants, of course, a lot better than the position Governor Granholm found herself in last year at this precise time.
What are we going to talk about every year if it's a 2-year budget?
I wonder if they'll still wait till the last minute to hammer it out. I have a funny feeling. I mean, it's a big job. I mean, planning ahead like that. I mean, you got to think. Okay, would it be easier planning long term, or more difficult?
Well, I think some people will say we can't accurately predict what the needs will be next year.
Yes.
But some people say that lots of other states have a 2-year budget. And so we'll keep our eyes on that. The murder rate in Detroit, Gary Austin, fell by 15.4% in 2010.
Yeah, it did. And police officials say they are doing the right things in Detroit. And as far as officials there are concerned, those numbers are heading in the right direction. And it certainly is good to see, because every time the national news media, for whatever reason, Detroit just has this I don't know, sadly, some sort of a reputation or whatever. It seems like the national news media just loves to jump all over Detroit anytime the murder rate goes up. It'll be curious to see if our friends in the national news media make a big deal of the fact things are getting safer in Detroit.
There is going to be an arraignment in Frankenmuth today on those for those people who destroyed all the ornaments and decorations at Bronner's Christmas Wonderland.
Yeah, I just wonder if they're really going to throw the book at him. I know if Michael Patrick Shields had his way. I tell you what, if I were any of those charged with this crime, the last person I would want prosecuting me would be MPS. I'll tell you.
Doesn't everybody feel that way? What was the point of them going up there and causing $40,000 worth of damage on Christmas Eve? They're age 17 to 21. And, if we were in Singapore, they would have, they'd be in trouble. They would have caning. You know what I mean? And that would scare anybody. If you had to get caned for something like this, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that? These guys are master caners.
It's brutal. And I'll tell you, it's one thing to vandalize stuff. I mean, that's bad enough. Obviously, it's a crime. A felony, go to prison for a long time for doing that sort of thing. But boy, when you do it at Bronner's Christmas Wonderland of all places, it just kind of carries it just seems worse.
On Christmas Eve of all times.
Yeah, I mean, a time of year and all that. My gosh. Hey, General Motors, you see this stock?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Highest since the IPO.
It keeps going up, a 15% jump over its initial public offering. Shortly after this morning's opening bell, the stock went as high as $38 a share. That's a story from yesterday. So, last November, when we compare things, the company went public with an initial offering of $33 a share, and this marked the automaker's return to the stock exchange. You remember GM was out of the game in 2009 with that bankruptcy filing. So
the opening price was $33, and now it's up to $38. Yeah. I knew we should have got in. I knew it. Everybody was cautious, though.
Doesn't matter. You bought your lottery ticket for tonight.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding me that.
It's kind of odd. The odds. This is kind of okay. All the zillions of dollars in this tonight's lottery, over $300 million now. your odds decrease the more people play. You'd figure, wouldn't you be happy with playing when the lottery topped out at, say, 150 million? You'd still get 150 million or thereabouts minus taxes, and your odds would be better because fewer are playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my math is not my strong suit, but I know that it's 330 million, and if you take the buyout, you chop it in half.
Yeah.
So what's that? 165 or something, and then you knock off taxes. Probably would be what, 40 million on something.
I
like
would
that?
think it's more money than enough Americans would know what to do with at any one time. Hey, what do you about make this Navy captain and these bizarre allegations and that raunchy video and all that?
Video, yeah.
Yeah, Captain Owen Honors. Yeah, I guess he's in hot water. There's going to be a hearing on this coming up, and those at the Pentagon are not happy. And very odd story there.
18 minutes after the hour, we'll talk with Governor Snyder, get you some sports too, and the rest of the news. It's Michael Patrick Shields. He's Gary Austin, back in a flash. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger has left office in California after 7 years. The actor turned governor who spent $25 million of his own money to get elected and reelected. His replacement, the infamous Jerry Brown, the Democrat who was governor from 1975 until 1983, sworn back in. And Arnold Schwarzenegger leaves office at the age of 63 with an approval rating of 22%. And tripled the $28 billion budget deficit. So it's hasta la vista in California for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Some people are happy to see him go, but actually it was a very colorful period in California and a challenging period for sure. So out goes Schwarzenegger, in comes Jerry Brown, and here in Michigan, in comes Rick Snyder, who was inaugurated this weekend. Good morning. Congratulations.
Thank you, Michael Patrick. Happy New Year to you. Great to be with you.
I saw you in the inaugural in the moment when you took the oath, and to me, it looked like you were smiling and proud smiling from ear to ear and proud from the inside out. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, it's an honor. I just felt honored that the support of the citizens to have the opportunity to serve. There's a lot of hard work that needs to be done, but the right thing to do is just roll up our sleeves and go solve problems. And I'm ready to go.
Was there anybody that you wished could have been there to see it that wasn't able to be there or had gone on?
Well, the couple people that I wish could have been there, and some of the other people would have been my parents, some of my aunts and uncles and such, but they've all passed away. And so it's one of those moments you always think back about how I'm sure they would have been very proud. And in fact, they were good people around the Lansing area for a lot of their lives, so they would have gotten a big kick out of it.
How did you sleep the night before?
Good. Yeah, generally I slept good. The only challenge was it was New Year's Eve the day before, so I actually stayed up a little later than I normally would have to bring in the new year.
And when you had nice weather, thank goodness, that was terrific. And I understand you hit the ground running and went into the office on Sunday, huh?
I did. Yeah. The weather was fabulous. I mean, we couldn't ask it anything better. It was raining the day before and got cold and snowy later that day, so we had the perfect window. So I appreciate all the cooperation there. And, I got unpacked yesterday, so we can get a running start today, and I appreciate our team. A good chunk of our organization was in yesterday, getting all revved up and raring to go.
What was that like what is your office like for those of us who may never see the inside of it? Would it be a busy sort of haphazard office, or do you keep everything neat and tidy, everything in its spot? And what sort of personal effects did you bring in yesterday?
Well, you know me, being a good nerd, I've got a very neat desk.
Yes.
And I've got a nice computer, and actually I'm getting that adjustment with the traditional way of doing things. I explained to people during the transition, they gave me lots of notebooks for the transition on all the different departments, which I read all of them. But I also made it clear to them, I said, I can carry all these on my computer and iPad, so actually I don't need all this paper. So in terms of having 4 feet of notebooks, I carry it around with me on either my iPad or my notebook.
Oh, man. Of course, coming from the computer business, you'll be able to streamline all of that paperwork and save a few trees in Pure Michigan, huh?
Yeah, well, it's good environmentalism, and it also saves money. And so I view that as part of smaller, faster, better, cheaper.
What will be on your desk in terms of novelties or pictures? Are there anything, do you include anything like that?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I have a couple pictures and such, and then I have 2 pieces of pottery that I used to keep pens and pencils in. One that was made by Melissa and one made by Kelsey back when they were in either elementary or middle school. And then Kelsey actually gave me a red glass apple several years ago that I keep. And then probably the last memento I have that goes way back is I have my father's stapler, which is the old, truly silver metal kind that you have. It's a whole different old style kind of device that I've had for years on my desk.
That's neat, because if you don't have much paper, you won't have much to staple, but it'll mean a lot to you to look at that, huh?
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah. Have you had a moment yet in the transition, or now that you're in office, where it was sort of an, politics kind of moment, kind of a welcome to the world of politics that surprised you?
Well, you're always going to run into those kind of things, and it's interesting. It's not so much on the partisan side. It's been more on, people talking about special interests. They want this or they want that. And that's just part of the territory. So I'm just trying to communicate back to them that there's a new and different way that I plan on doing things.
Paul Egan in the Detroit News this morning, the Lansing Bureau, is sort of speculating as to what will happen when the rubber meets the road. He says that obviously with a budget deficit of $1.85 billion, you'll be looking to seek cuts in public employees at the state and local government and school district levels, perhaps. He says that what will happen then is there will be a huge outcry. He calls it loud and rancorous and partisan protests from people who have to take a dose of that medicine. And he says that will be the time when we'll find out just how tough you are. What do you make of that question?
Well, I you clearly hope they're overstating the reaction of people when things happen, but when people are asked to change or make sacrifices, sometimes they resist and have issues with it. But part of my whole approach is to try to do it in an open fashion and have a real dialogue with people and get people to understand where we're coming from and the common ground and how long-term, hopefully, it's a better answer for all of us. And it's going to not just include, one sector or another. Most of us are going to have to figure out how we contribute to the solution in some fashion. So I don't pick one group out of this. It's one of those things that it is going to be a case of short-term sacrifice for long-term gain for many or most of us.
You have said in the past that you want to accomplish a lot as fast as you can, and a lot of the political pundits say that's the best chance a governor has when he's new in office and he's got the tide going with him. If he wants to get things accomplished, he's got to do them quickly. Do you stand by that? And if so, what can we expect to see in the next, 100 days?
Absolutely. That's what you should expect. And I've started coining a new term that I think is catching on a little bit in the administration called dog years. That's how I want to measure time, is basically 7 weeks is a year, and I want to take this first 6 months, this first 182 days, and say, how much can we do? Because if you figure out the first 182 days, it's 3.7 dog years. So my goal is to say, can we get almost 4 years' worth of work done in the first 6 months?
Wow. And you've got the people that can help you keep that pace, huh?
Yeah, well, that's it. I think people want to join in that process because that's how you start changing the momentum, and that's how you show real results, and that's how you start changing the culture, which is, again, the biggest underlying thing we need to get at.
What will you do today on the first full business day of the year?
Going to start with a staff meeting with the senior staff, and then I'm going to jump right in. I've got a meeting with John Nixon, our new budget director, and Mike Finney, our economic development head. So if you did your list of issues, economic development's number one, and the budget's right behind that.
Are you an early guy? Are you the kind of guy who shows up at the office early, or is that not necessary because of technology?
It's not necessary because of technology. I get up and get stuff done early, but one of the things I'm going to occasionally try to do is once Kelsey's back in school, is actually try to drop her off at school before I head up to Lansing.
That's nice. That's really nice. Executive orders, any of them on the horizon, maybe even today or this week?
We'll have some out this week. Yep, they're just finalizing and double-checking the language on a couple, and so we'll have some out this week for you.
Well, we will be paying attention, of course, and we want to say congratulations, and we know the trail from Ann Arbor to Lansing is going to maybe from time to time include this radio program. And so you let us know if we can help with anything, and we'll be neighbors right down the street to you here, and we'll see you in person right around State of the State time.
That would be great. Look forward to seeing you. Take care.
Governor Rick Snyder. Now, 26 states have new governors, And if you look across the board at their inauguration speeches, there were somber warnings to constituents of tough times, the revenue shortfalls and a weak job market, sagging economy and soaring budget deficits, and the loss of federal stimulus money. Makes you wonder who would want that job in the first place. But so many of the speeches across the nation that these 26 new governors gave were somber as opposed to celebratory. Somber times, too, at Borders Group. The book company announced 2 senior executives have resigned in the past 2 days. That's according to a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They are Ann Arbor-based Borders, as you know, here in Michigan, so we pay special attention to them. Louis Delmas is one of the most wild-looking Detroit Lions. He's a defensive back, and he's got the dreadlocks and the grill, and he's always looks kind of wild. And, well, there's a relative of his that's been charged in a road rage incident in Canton Township last month. 20-year-old Ravel Sadler was charged with 3 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon, along with felony firearm and concealed weapons charges. Delmas was a passenger in the pickup truck driven by Sadler. This was early on December 21st. 3 teens who had been driving alongside the vehicle on westbound Ford Road called the police to report that Sadler pointed a gun at them. Police found a handgun in the truck after stopping him on Ford Road, and Delmas told officers the gun was registered to him in Florida, and he has a concealed pistol license. So Delmas is not facing any charges, but Sadler indeed will be back in court, and that Roseville woman is in court too. She set her 44-year-old boyfriend on fire. They were arguing, and she poured nail polish remover on him and set him on fire, and then she stabbed him, or chased him anyway, with a butcher knife. He's in serious condition at Detroit Receiving Hospital, and sadly, the 2 children were in the apartment at the time. The woman's being held on a $200,000 cash bond, and we'll be back in court this week. Wall Street started the new year by hitting a 2-year high. The Dow rose 93 points, the S&P gained 14, and the NASDAQ was up 39. All the while, consumer bankruptcy filings are at a 5-year high. In the United States, up 9% from last year. The filings are the highest number since 2005. Auto sales figures, though, expected to be solid as December numbers are released today. We'll talk to Cheryl Freeborough from Hyundai of Lansing about that a little bit later. Sales could be up 26% from November. And Fiat may be increasing its stake in the Chrysler Corporation. It looks like Sergio Marchionne, who we will see in a week or so at the Detroit International Auto Show, the North American International Auto Show is what they call it, says it's possible Fiat could take a majority stake in Chrysler, and some analysts see that as a strong business case. This before Chrysler goes public. It's possible that Fiat will increase its stake to 51%. There are, though, no plans to merge the 2 companies. And the Ford Motor Company marks the new year by installing its Sync Pro connectivity system in its 3 millionth vehicle in North America. That option was launched in 2008. Now it's available on all Ford and Lincoln vehicles except commercial and fleet. The price is $395. It gives you the 911 assist, a vehicle health report, and the ability to sync your iPod and your phone and everything through the system where you don't have to use your hands to dial and stay connected. It's 35 after the hour. The end of the world is coming. We'll give you the date, according to some people, in 4 minutes. That music indicates it's time for the Answer Man segment. Michael Patrick Shields. I have the Answer Man hat on. Some people said, that MPS, he's got an answer for everything, and that's how I became the Answer Man. My wisdom, as the music indicates, some people, they get their wisdom from the East, but sometimes my wisdom has to come from parts South. And Gary Austin, the Anchorman, will petition me with questions. And,
all right. Let's start with this.
Let me ask you first, if I can.
Okay.
Do you know when the end of the world, when the rapture, when the day of judgment will be? Because I have the date.
I have no idea. I don't know. Do we want to know this?
I don't know. There's a Christian group who wants you to know. They're going around the country in RVs and campers and all this sort of thing. It's a guy named Harold Camping. He's 89 years old, and he thinks the Bible essentially functions as a cosmic calendar. And according to the way he's worked it out, he says, quote, beyond the shadow of a doubt, May 21st will be the date of the rapture and the day of judgment. May 21st this year.
May 21st.
Yeah. So
any reason why that particular day?
He says that there are calculations. For instance, he's found other events in the Bible that worked out, like the foundation of Israel in 1948. He's got a whole timeline thing going. And he says that May 21st is the day that history will come to an end.
So all this historical stuff in the past, this guy compiled, and everything points to May 21st. Wow.
Is that Memorial Day? Because I got plans. Churches aren't setting a date because if you look in the Bible, it also says, in the Gospels of Mark and Matthew, no one can know the day or the hour it will happen.
Now, does he detail how it all comes to an end?
Yeah, he says that those who are saved will be taken up, and the rest of us are going to have to stay here and suffer, the agonies of the damned.
Wait a minute, taken up? You mean like another planet or something?
No, to heaven.
Oh, to heaven. Oh.
Yeah. He says that's how that'll work out.
All right.
Some of us are going to be stuck here to, continue the agonies of the damned. Now, we never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Julia Ormond is 46. You would have seen her in the movie Sabrina, Legends of the Fall, and First Night. So happy birthday, darling, to you.
Okay.
Okay, now it's your turn.
Let's get on with the business at hand here.
Hey, by the way, you drive a Saturn, don't you?
I do.
Do you know I drive a Saturn now, too?
You do. Is that what you're driving now?
I'm driving the Saturn Vue. It's a 2010 Saturn
nice.
Vue XE with front-wheel drive, and it's available at Hyundai of Lansing. It's sitting right out in front of our Gillespie Group storefront studio right now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. It's silver-colored, grayish.
Yep.
This car has 8,500 miles on it, and when it was new, it was $25,000. It's going to be only $18,400 at Hyundai of Lansing.
That's terrific.
Many said
GM made a whopping mistake by pulling the plug on that brand. And my 02 Saturn, this baby's gonna go forever. I've got well over 100,000 miles on it.
Well,
now.
this one has only 8,500, and it's like a brand new car. And for $18,495, you can get a car with 8,000 miles on it, the Saturn Vue 2010. And it feels like brand new, and there it is. It's like a small SUV. So if you want it, just contact Cheryl Freeborough there at Hyundai of Lansing. Tell her you heard about it on the program, and they'll take it away from me. I'm driving it, for about a week or so to test drive it and see what it's like, and it's been a lot of fun. So,
and when that one's gobbled up, you get another.
If you want it, it's yours.
Very good.
So I'm a Saturn driver like you for the moment.
Good deal.
Okay. All right, hit me with your best shots.
Here we go. The man who owns the bong, Miley Cyrus, used to smoke saliva. I still don't get it. In any event, is reportedly having a change of heart. What's his change of heart? Answer, man.
He's embarrassed that it's gone public, and he wants to put it all in the past.
Well, sort of, kind of. Yeah, I would say in a roundabout sort of way. Yeah, at first, he said he's not going to part with this infamous smoking device because it had, quote, sentimental value. But now he's having a change of heart, and what do you think he's going to do with it?
Sell it.
You're absolutely right. A change of heart, he hopes to make money on selling the bong. Miley Cyrus smokes saliva. Yeah, saliva. I still don't get it. And in any event, a federal judge in Pennsylvania will not stop the lawsuit filed by a woman who claims she was groped by a person wearing what kind of a costume at Walt Disney World?
A character costume.
You're absolutely right. Of all things, Donald Duck.
Yeah.
Now, the 27-year-old says the person in the costume touched her inappropriately and then joked about it. Disney has been pushing to have the case tossed out, or at least moved out of the area. Yeah, very good. All right.
Oh, boy. Sometimes those characters are women in those costumes.
Yeah, you never know.
The Mickey Mouse is very often played by a woman because they're smaller and, they're gentler with the kids.
Yeah. So you never
know. I don't know what this case was. But.
Okay. GM stock continues to go in which direction?
Up, 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 up.
Yeah, 15% jump over its initial public offering. Very, very good. Hey, Ford Motor Company's got something going on here, Answer Man. Marking the new year by installing something new. What's it called and was it do?
Well, they have the sync technology, and they've installed it in a huge number of vehicles.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And that huge number happens to be 3 million. That's pretty darn good.
Not as huge as tonight's lotto.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
$330 million.
And what are the odds of winning that?
175 million to 1.
Something like that. It's pretty sizable. Last one here. Our new governor, Rick Snyder,
Yes.
he wants to do something different as far as hammering out a new state budget. He wants to do it in a different time frame. What time frame is Rick Snyder talking about?
He only wants to do it once every 2 years, man. He doesn't want to be bothered with that every year.
Yep, it's a new change, of course, for this state. It'll be curious to see if state lawmakers go along.
The Answer Man window is closed. Lots going on in the world of sports, including a new scandal for Brett Favre, if you can believe that. You'll hear about it when you get back. It's Michael Patrick Shields. The Michigan State Spartan men's basketball team was in Evanston, Illinois yesterday for a game against Northwestern, and the Spartan Sport Network's Adam Ruff was there.
Michael Patrick, last night's game was a blowout in disguise as MSU won by just 3, 65-62, despite being outscored by 15 points from the free throw line. But still, MSU had a 13-point lead with less than 3 minutes to play when Northwestern made a 12-0 run to pull within a single point with 30 seconds left. But Draymond Green then had a rebound and putback on a Kalen Lucas missed free throw to put the game away. It was a fitting way for the game to end for Green, who led the way for MSU with 15 points and 11 rebounds. The win was MSU's 7th straight at Northwestern. Up next, Michigan State travels to State College to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions on Saturday at 1 p.m. And we'll go on the air with a Tom Izzo pregame show at 12 noon. For MPS in the Morning, I'm Adam Ruff with the Spartan Sports Network.
Michigan State now 10-4 overall, 2-0 in the Big Ten. We'll talk to Susie Merchant, the Michigan State women's basketball coach. They're 13-1 right now. That's the best start in Michigan State women's basketball history. Pistons not so lucky last night against the Jazz. They dropped a 102-97 decision in Utah. Detroit's lost 11 straight at Salt Lake City, and they go to L.A. tonight to finish their 3-game road trip against the Lakers, who are also on a skid. So we'll see what happens there. The Red Wings begin a 5-game road trip tonight with a stop in Edmonton. Wings are in first place in the Central Division, 8 points ahead of St. Louis. They're going to be in Calgary, Vancouver, Colorado, and Columbus before coming home to Joe Louis Arena. Those are some pretty cold spots at this time of year. Hot, though, is Red Wing defenseman Nick Lidstrom. He's been named one of the NHL's 3 stars for the week. Congratulations to him. We'll make Nick Lidstrom our Northwood University Leader of the Day. Northwood University is celebrating 50 years of producing leaders. Leading the University of Michigan, Rich Rodriguez remains the coach, but Stanford coach Jim Harbaugh continues to be mentioned as a possible replacement. They're also talking about San Diego State's coach Brady Hoke in case the University of Michigan decides to pull the plug. Andrew Luck yesterday fired 4 touchdown passes, and 4th-ranked Stanford used a big second half to blow out Virginia Tech 40-12 at the Orange Bowl. Remember, Stanford is Jim Harbaugh's team, so a big, big win for in the first ever BCS bowl game for Stanford and Jim Harbaugh. Ohio State takes on Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl tonight at the Superdome. The Buckeyes are 11-1, 6th straight BCS appearance. Razorbacks are 10-2, quarterbacked by a guy who used to play for the University of Michigan. Off-season NFL coaching moves began Monday. The Browns fired Eric Mangini. He was 5-11 for his 2nd straight season. The Vikings gave Leslie Frazier, the interim head coach, the job, and Gary Kubiak will be back next year with the Texans. ABC News is reporting that quarterback Brett Favre and the New York Jets have been sued by 2 massage therapists. Brett Favre played for the Jets, as you know, back in 2008, allegedly sent racy text messages propositioning the 2 women who claimed they were never offered work again by the Jets. And so Brett Favre, who just said he's hanging it up for good, can't quite hang up some of those problems it seemed to be plaguing him at the moment. Gary Austin, an update on a news story?
Yes, Michael Patrick. Ari accused me of being unaware of all the current drug trends. I've been informed that it's not saliva that Miley Cyrus, it's salvia. Is that right, salvia?
Beats me. I don't know.
Beats me, too, in any event.
I've never had a bong, but I have had a hookah from time to time with some of my Lebanese friends. I don't know what any of that stuff is.
So anyway, we'll clarify it. Not saliva, it's salvia, or something like that.
That helps. Well, whoever told you that and corrected you must know a little more about it than us, huh?
Well, we both know him, and we'll leave his name anonymous.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Auto sales figures expected to be solid. December numbers released yesterday, or today, later today, we'll get them. But the indications are that North American sales could be already up 9% compared to the same month last year and up 26% from November. Cheryl Freeborough with Hyundai of Lansing and the Freeborough Automotive Group. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How good to hear from you.
Thought we'd go to the front line here and find out, do those numbers jive with you? Up 9% from December of last year and 26% from November?
Well, we were up quite a bit more, actually, but, our numbers in Lansing were pretty light. We were up actually about 400%. So we had, but that reflects on really some very light numbers in the Lansing market in the past. But the market in general, yes, very much up. We felt real positive at the end of the year. A lot of positive feedback coming in from our guests.
You still selling mainly used cars as opposed to new cars?
Actually, we sold pretty much equal, 50, 1-to-1, new and used. So that was a positive trend because we had been selling, 3 times as many used as new, but we've started to catch up. And so, in fact, we're out of some of our best sellers in the new side. Used are still real strong as well.
In the case of Hyundai, though, some of your new cars are just as affordable as the pre-owned ones, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are, and they're also award-winning. We have the top cars in safety with both the Safety Commission and the insurance agencies. We also have one of our cars is in the running for the Car of the Year at the Auto Show, which I'm excited to go to.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of positives. We've got a new Elantra, which is that's the one we're sold out of right now. It's just going through. It's such a great. We've got the best gas mileage as well, which right now today is very important.
Yeah, we hear gas may go up in the spring all the way to $3.75. It's Hyundai of Lansing with Cheryl Freeborough. If you want to check them out online or in person, should be happy to see you there. I'm driving a Saturn right now, pre-owned, and you can get it at Hyundai of Lansing. It's Michael Patrick Shields on Tuesday. It's Michael Patrick Shields, and boy, the bowl system sure has changed, hasn't it? The Orange Bowl was last night, Virginia Tech getting stomped by Stanford, coached by Jim Harbaugh, and that was 40-12. And Jim Harbaugh, all the talk is, where is he going next? That was Stanford's first BCS appearance, and everybody's speculating, Lou Holtz and all the ESPN analysts, is he going to coach the San Francisco 49ers? Is he going to coach the Michigan Wolverines? And John Elway was on the sideline, and there was some talk that John Elway, who was a Stanford graduate, was going to try to convince him to come out and coach the Denver Broncos. All this intrigue going on, and tonight in New Orleans, these games all used to be on New Year's Day or right there around New Year's Day, but it'll be the Sugar Bowl, and Ohio State will take on Arkansas, and Arkansas's quarterback used to be at the University of Michigan, and Ohio State is 11-1. They're making their 6th straight BCS Bowl appearance, but they've got some controversy, too, as 5 of the players, including the quarterback, Terrell Pryor, were suspended for essentially trading autographs for tattoos and trading some of their merchandise, including, believe it or not, a sportsmanship award for money. And so what happened is, as I understand it, the NCAA levied a 5-game suspension, but it doesn't start till next season, the first 5 games of next year, which would include the Michigan State game, by the way. So Jim Tressel said, look, you guys, if you're going to skip to the NFL, you can't come to New Orleans and you can't come to the Sugar Bowl. So I need a promise from you that you're going to stick it out next year, serve the suspension, and play. And, of course, they all said, oh, yes, Coach, you can bet we're going to do that. Now let's go to New Orleans. So there they are, and will they stick to the promise is going to be the question at hand. And we're going to talk coming up shortly with a real-life Jerry Maguire, Robert Romano. He's a sports and entertainment lawyer in Connecticut. And we're going to talk about the BCS Bowl system. We're going to talk about the new Brett Favre scandal. Yes, there's a new one having to do with some massage therapists who say that Brett Favre, when he was working for the Jets, sent them a couple of texts, and they didn't comply with his, let's say, proposition, and then the Jets never hired them again. So it doesn't seem to go away for a guy like Brett Favre, who said the other day he's hanging it up for good. On the positive side of the ledger, the Michigan State men's Spartans yesterday, the basketball team beat Northwestern. It was a close one, though, 65-62. They had a pretty good lead, but had a little scare down the stretch there. And wow, this is really fascinating here. The pride of Traverse City, Michigan State women's basketball coach Susie Merchant is on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
You have a positive story going on here. Do you realize you're the winningest coach in the history of Eastern Michigan University? Then you came here to Michigan State, and you have, in your first 3 seasons, the hottest start by a Spartan coach ever. How you doing that?
Yes. I don't know. It's just been an interesting ride, that's for sure. And I think we have a good group of kids, to be honest with you, that have really played well together through some adversity, and we're just finding ways right now. But it's just the beginning of the Big Ten season, so there's a lot of opportunities ahead of us, and we're not going to get too excited about the past. As you know, in this business, you got to think about the next game, which is Thursday for us.
Yeah, you host Wisconsin at 7 o'clock at the Breslin Center on Thursday, and then you go to Ann Arbor for a noon game against the Wolverines. But your win against Illinois on Sunday, 70-57, was the 11th straight for the team, and this is, at 13-1, the hottest start ever for a Michigan State Spartans women's basketball team. I guess, how do you celebrate that and then tell the players not to look down?
You know, we've got a really solid core of veteran kids that I think really don't get too fired up about things like that. You know, I think it's neat, especially on one side of it, we talked about, you know, some of the people that have worn the uniform at Michigan State and, you know, some of those kids and what they accomplished here, not only individually but collectively as a team, is pretty impressive. And so to obviously have an opportunity to maybe exceed where they were at some point in the season. But as you know, I mean, this business, this job is always about what happens in March, and you know, for us, it's just about continuing to improve as a team and play our best basketball against a really good Wisconsin team that's coming in here 2-0 in the Big Ten.
You know, I talked to Nick Saban before the Capital One Bowl, and we talked about Alabama's motivation for the game. It's probably not the bowl game they wanted to go to, and they don't give a damn that Nick Saban used to work for Michigan State. And so I talked about motivation, and he said that the media tends to make a lot about motivating players. They like to talk about it, but that he doesn't really have to do that. The players are motivated enough on their own, or they wouldn't be in this position in the first place. Is it true that you have to coach sort of technical strategy and fundamentals more than getting players up for a game?
I think they get up for the game. I really do. I think, you know, sometimes, you know, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I think they are highly motivated, competitive people in nature. They wouldn't be where they're at, and, you know, they wouldn't be playing at the highest level. So I think, you know, but there is some prodding a little bit, and I'm sure he's had that too, where, you know, kids just, you know, they have bad days, or they go through maybe a little bit of a shooting slump, or maybe, you know, for him, his running back wasn't playing that well, the guy from Michigan, Ingram. So, yeah. You know, how do you get them through those tough times when they have injuries and that kind of thing? So I think there's motivation, you know, in some ways as a coach, you know, just not so much what you say, but sometimes how you say it to kids and getting them back to the place where, you know, they play at the highest level. And, you know, it's a long year, and I think basketball's a little bit different in the sense that, you know, it's a pretty fast-paced game. It can change quickly, and it's a 2-semester sport, and it's a grind. I mean, we're one of the few sports that competes at a high level in both semesters, and it's a long year without a Thanksgiving break, a Christmas break for these kids, you know, a spring break. I just think it's pretty grueling, and how you manage their energy and their focus, I think, is pretty important.
They talk about Tom Izzo being a really tough coach, and I've seen practices. I've seen it in action from time to time. How do you know? Well, first of all, are you considered a tough coach? Because everybody knows how friendly you are and how sweet you are and how great you are in the community. They don't see behind the scenes the prodding that you might have to do. And secondly, if you are tough, how do you know when you've gone almost too far with a player that you have to start bringing them back with confidence?
Yeah, you know, I think I wouldn't be in this business if I was, you know, if I didn't have a little bit of level of expectation on the practice floor. I think, you know, I don't think those things, it's just like we tell players all the time. It's, you know, when you step between the lines, it's all business. You compete at a high level. You know, you're going after a position. You're not friends with the guy that plays the same position as you. It's your job to win it. And I'm a lot like that. I mean, I think you can be, you know, who you are, but then when you step between the lines, I think I have a little different perspective of what I want to accomplish. So I do think that, you know, my kids understand that, my players understand that. You know, I think, too, at the end of the day, it is about motivating people, and getting them to be the best they can be and helping them through some tough times, and obviously celebrating their accomplishments as well. And it's a fine line now. I think kids are a little bit different. I think, your intro when you talked about those Ohio State guys that sold some of the memorabilia that, it's baffling to me, to you, and probably it's certainly an outrage that anyone would sell a championship ring or least of all a sportsmanship award. I mean, that's how ironic is that? But kids are built a little different now, and so how you manage their egos and massage their egos a little bit, is part of the deal. It's part of what we do, and sometimes you got to push them, and sometimes you got to pull them along, and you just have to figure out how they're built and when to do it at the right time.
Yeah, I don't think that's unique to sports either. I think in business, when young people are coming out of college or looking for a job, they want to be the CEO right away instead of sometimes paying their dues like you and I were used to. It's different. I think I take your point very clearly, and while you might be tough and you might have expectations, at the same time, you get concerned that maybe some of them will. Have you ever made a player cry?
Yes.
I thought so.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it wasn't intentional, but I think, it happens, especially on the women's side. I think we tend to be, they're a little more emotional based at times, and you have to kind of pick your words, and make sure that you're fighting the right battle or you're going to lose them. And I think my philosophy has always been, this is the only team you have. These are the only players you have on your team, so you got to get them to buy in and believe in the system and believe in you. At the same time, there's that little fine line of having a little bit of a fear factor. In order for them to compete, they got to be held accountable. I think Izzo does that. He does it his way, and he's done it his way a long time. And he recruits the guys that can manage his system, and I think he's really good at that. On our side too. But I think he's getting to a point where he sees, the culture has changed a lot. What comes around one player now is an entourage of people, and sometimes by the time we get them, they've never been corrected or really held accountable for getting in a stance and jumping to the ball and defending or rebounding or improving their skill set. They've been told they've been great since they've been in sixth grade. So it can be a little bit of a challenge, and that balance between pushing them and obviously massaging their egos can be, a fine line. But I think that's what you got to find in this generation is what works within each player.
Well, you're getting great results. We wish you good luck at home. 7 o'clock against Wisconsin at the Breslin Center. That's on Thursday. And then pop down to Ann Arbor for the noon game against the Wolverines. Congratulations, and we'll be in touch soon. Always great to talk to you, Coach.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. That's Susie Merchant, the coach of the Michigan State women's basketball team. The real-life Jerry Maguire. When we get back, it's Michael Patrick Shields. Let's talk about sports. And when you talk about sports these days, you're talking about money for the most part, even at the collegiate level. And Robert Romano is a sports entertainment lawyer. He's negotiated contracts for marketing and sponsorship agreements for professional athletes, coaches, and front office personnel, too. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Good.
I'm better off than Greg Norman, I think, for a moment, because tonight there's a $330 million Mega Millions jackpot at stake. And I notice here in today's news that Greg Norman, the golfer, is trying to sell his home, and it's been on the market for some time now. It's $65 million for poor Greg Norman, and he can't sell it. Can you imagine that?
Well, if you win, you can help him out over there.
Who would think that somebody like Greg Norman would need help? But a lot of athletes, from what I understand now, are in the real estate pinch. Joe Montana has a wine country estate available for $49 million, and Derek Jeter has a $20 million apartment, a penthouse there in New York City in Trump Tower. He wants to get rid of that. There is very little market for some of these highly expensive homes, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the economy still hasn't recovered fully yet. And, the amount of people that can afford $20, $40, $50 million is very few and far between.
Yeah, I guess they thought it would never end, but it has sort of ended. And speaking of golfers, we see now Tiger Woods has been losing still endorsements. Will he ever be a candidate again for the high-level endorsement?
I think if he starts winning again. I mean, a lot of his issues are behind him now. I mean, the divorce has been finalized. He's paid out, the $100 million to his ex-wife. He also had to take out a mortgage on one of his properties in Florida, I think to the tune of $56 million.
Wow.
So, I think most of them are behind him now. He needs to start winning. He needs to win a major. I think if he has a successful year, this upcoming year, he should be fine.
All you have to do is win again, right? No matter what scandal you're in, when everybody thinks that no one will ever cheer for you again, you win.
Well, look at Michael Vick.
Yeah.
Prime example. Michael Vick is, did roughly 2 years in prison, comes out, plays extremely well, leads the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs, and boom, he's an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he may end up on the cover of the Madden sports game next year, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
That's the ultimate prize for an NFL player, isn't it?
Well, it's got to be. But isn't there also the Madden jinx that goes with that?
I hadn't thought about that. Let me ask you this now. Brett Favre, we understand in the news this morning, he was here in Detroit this weekend to play the last game against the Lions. He didn't play. He just walked around on the sidelines and then I guess decided that he's done. Do you think, first of all, that he's really done? And secondly, do you think there's anybody in the NFL that next season might give him a jingle?
I think he's done. In my opinion, with all the legal issues that are starting to pop up with his name involved, I think he just wants to move away from the sport and just go retire down there in Mississippi and hope that his wife isn't mad at him anymore for some of the things that he has done. So, yeah, I think on a professional football level, I think he has actually played his last game.
The new scandal that we're reading about this morning is that there are 2 massage therapists now who are suing the New York Jets because Brent allegedly sent them racy text messages propositioning them, and they didn't comply, and then they were never offered work again by the Jets.
That's true, yeah. 2 of the massage therapists back when he was with the Jets 2 years ago have sued Brett Favre, the New York Jet organization, and the massage therapists who hired them to work at the Jet compound for sexual harassment. Those suits have been filed, and we'll see where they go.
Yeah, is it a case now where they're all just like Tiger Woods going to come crawling out of the woodwork with a claim here and there, or maybe they've saved the text messages? I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like he's getting a little ganged up on by Jen Sturger and now the 2 massage therapists, but they had a 2-year statute of limitations on their cause of action, so they just needed to file them timely, and I guess that time is up, so they needed to do it. Are they ganging up? Who knows? That'll come up. A lot of these issues will come up during the course of discovery and through the course of the trial.
You're around a lot of professional athletes. I got to believe this sort of thing happens all the time. Is it just because he's Brett Favre that they're going after him? This kind of behavior is not uncommon, is it?
I wouldn't say it's uncommon. Look at the Jets this year with the NSN's thing issue. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of the team members involved. That was even one of the position coaches being involved in the alleged harassment of that sideline reporter. So does it happen? Yeah. Is there a fine line between, flirting and sexual harassment? Yeah. And I think the NFL needs to take the $50,000 that they took from Brett Favre and set up some sort of sexual harassment courses or sexual harassment education so that, the teams and the players in the league aren't faced with these issues down the road.
Well, let's face it, though. These guys are athletes. They're highly paid. They're sometimes spoiled. Some people will say...
Sometimes, yeah.
It's the jock mentality. Boys will be boys and all that sort of thing. And when you start putting women in bikinis on the sidelines or whatever the heck she was wearing, and then I'm not apologizing for them. I'm just saying every time you watch an NFL game now, the sideline reporter is almost always a female.
Yeah, but it doesn't give anyone a right to harass them or to make them feel uncomfortable in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue. The sideline reporters, male or female, have a job to do. They should be able to do their job well without feeling anything that is hostile or they're only getting their information because of, their gender.
Mm-hmm. Now, this Ohio State situation, the Sugar Bowl tonight, Ohio State and Arkansas. You had these 5 players, including Terrell Pryor, the quarterback, who sold their memorabilia, their rings, and the sportsmanship award in one case, and sometimes did it in trade for tattoos. And as I understand it, Jim Tressel said to them after they were levied with the 5-game suspension that starts next year, by the way, not with the bowl game, that if you guys are going to bolt for the NFL, you can't come to the bowl game. You got to promise me you're going to stick around for next year, serve out the suspension, and play. They said, "Oh yeah, coach, we're going to come back next year." How much do you think that promise is worth?
It's about as much as a coach saying the same thing in reverse, saying, "Yeah, I'll be here for the bowl game, but I'll guarantee that I'll be here next year." I think it goes both ways. We've seen many coaches over the course of the past few years jump ship either right before or right after the bowl games and go on to a new and better career, whether it be at Notre Dame or whatever school that they've picked now.
Why do you think Jim Tressel didn't sit them down for the bowl game? Wasn't that the strong move?
It would have been the strong move. I think it would have sent the right message. But I think the NCAA would have been wouldn't have been too happy with that move. I mean, the Sugar Bowl and the BCS give the NCAA and the different schools and the different conferences a lot of money, and they need to put a good product on the field for the game. For lack of a better way of putting it. And this is all about revenue. And the BCS is paying a lot of money. They want the best players on the field at all times.
So the NCAA rules are quite situational then.
Oh, I think so. I mean, they are allowing these 5 players to play in the game based on a 2004 rule that I can't. I've been researching and I really can't find. I can't find which rule they're actually talking about. But what they're saying is that Ohio State is, that this 2004 rule is applicable here. The students involved, the student athletes involved, didn't have an adequate rule education, and there was no competitive advantage by what they did. So therefore, they should be allowed to play in the bowl game and then serve out their suspension next year.
Are you hearing anything concrete about Jim Harbaugh coming to Michigan or going to the 49ers?
I haven't heard anything concrete about that yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
He's a hot property right now. He can't stay at Stanford, can he? I mean, it's time for him to cash it in, don't you think?
Yeah. Like most of these coaches, most of the professionals, they serve out their time at whatever school they're coaching with, and then move on to the bigger paycheck.
You think we'll ever have a college football, a real playoff, or is there too much money in the BCS now for anybody to tinker with it?
I think we need to. In my opinion, there is a lot. Number one, yes, there is a lot of money involved. But I think just public opinion, ESPN is vying for it. A lot of the different networks are vying for it, and it possibly can generate more revenue for the schools, more revenue for the conferences. And I think, down the road, maybe 2 to 3, 5 years from now, we're going to have to come into a playoff system.
How realistic was the movie Jerry Maguire?
Not very.
Well, it's good. Do you have a book or a website or anything like that where people can follow you?
Sure, I have a website. It's RomanoSportsLaw.com.
RomanoSportsLaw.com. Great talking with you. Let's catch up again soon around the Super Bowl.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Have a good
New Year. To you. It's 35 minutes after the hour. That's Robert Romano, the real-life Jerry Maguire, and he says that's not that realistic after all. Robert Romano, the sports and entertainment lawyer. We'll see what happens. Sugar Bowl tonight, and the next Monday is the national championship game between Oregon and, of course, Auburn. Who do you like in that game? Will Rich Rodriguez still be coaching the Wolverines by that stage? We'll have to see. Red Wings are in Edmonton tonight. Pistons lost in Utah last night. Michigan State basketball team beat Northwestern in Evanston, but only by 3 points. And Eric Mangini is out in Cleveland as the coach there. Stanford, a big winner yesterday for Jim Harbaugh in the Orange Bowl over Virginia Tech. It's Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. Politics is our family business. Mark Brewer is the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party, and presuming there still is one, right, after all that Republican tsunami.
Absolutely, Michael Patrick. We're going to spend the next couple of years holding Republicans, starting with Rick Snyder, accountable. They're now in charge of the state government, the state budget, and the Michigan economy. And we have yet to see from Rick Snyder, what's the plan for creating 800,000 jobs that Michigan has lost in the last decade? What's the plan for balancing the state budget? Lots of photo ops, lots of happy talk out of the governor over the last several weeks, but no plans, no ideas, no specifics yet.
He told us on this program yesterday that there will be some cuts, there will be some pain, and he's going to try to talk it out with people and reason with them about why state workers and so forth and city governments and the rest are going to have some of their budget cuts. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's good as a concept, And he has talked about bipartisanship and so forth. We haven't seen a lot of bipartisanship so far. There have been a couple token Democrats appointed, but that's been pretty much it. So the proof is going to be in the doing. Is it going to be true bipartisanship? And when it comes to public employees and sacrifice, I think it also needs to be recognized that public employees in this state have already sacrificed considerably in the last 10 years, giving up billions of dollars in concessions, be it wage cuts or benefit cuts or whatever. And so the sacrifice can't fall on them alone. Mm-hmm. Again, he has said it's going to be equal sacrifice, shared sacrifice across the board. Nice words. Let's see if that's what actually happens.
Well, he did say he's not going to accept full pay. He didn't.
Well, that's good because he's got to cover the cost of, the unused governor's residence now here in Lansing. I mean, he has added to the cost of state government by insisting on living in his home in the Ann Arbor area.
Oh, really?
Which means that now the state police have to, chauffeur him back and forth to Ann Arbor every day, which adds to the expense. So I would hope that he would make up that expense to the taxpayers of the state by figuring out a way to cover the cost of the unused governor's residence here in Lansing.
And that's what you mean, that they have to maintain it and keep it up as if someone were living there anyway.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, they're minimal expenses.
Some nights he might be there.
Again, added to that is every day now, he's apparently going to commute an hour, hour and a half, however long it takes, back and forth between here and Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. That adds to the cost.
$159,300 would be his salary. He says he's going to take less than that. He hasn't said how much yet. He did say that he wants, by July 1st, a new budget with no tax increases, and he wants it to be a 2-year budget. What do you make of that? Governor Granholm asked for a July 1st budget, too, when she was in office,
right.
didn't she?
Again, great goal. But it's a process goal. It's not substance. It's like, what's in the budget? What are you going to propose? What are the cuts going to be? How are you going to make up a $1.8 billion budget deficit? And that's before he eliminates the Michigan business tax, which will probably double that deficit. So how are you going to fill a $3 billion or more than $3 billion budget hole? What's the plan? I mean, look, he's been running for office since the spring of 2009. We're now approaching a 2-year mark since he started running for this office. And we still don't have a specific plan of what's going to get cut, who's going to pay, what are the sacrifices going to be. And, the clock is ticking here. Time for him to put up and show us what the plan is.
He will apparently be picking a new Supreme Court justice, as I understand. I'm hearing from AP this morning that Justice Maura Corrigan is going to quit and go to head the welfare agency. She was conservative anyway, right? So he'll replace a conservative with a conservative.
Well, again, I think 2 points there, too. I think there should be considerable concern about the appointment of Maura Corrigan, if that, in fact, happens. Mm-hmm. She has never managed anything of any significant size. I mean, she has spent her entire life as a lawyer, working in a prosecutor's office, working on the Michigan Supreme Court. This is one of the biggest agencies in state government, both in terms of the budget and in terms of the number of employees, and she has absolutely no experience relevant to running that kind of agency. So that's a significant issue there. Now, in terms of an appointment, again, I just go back to Governor Snyder's own words. We're going to be bipartisan. We're going to be moderate. The person he appoints to fill that vacancy will be a test of that rhetoric. Does he appoint a moderate, centrist, middle-of-the-road person, or do we get another right-winger on the Michigan Supreme Court to take that court further to the right in terms of denying access to the courts, denying justice to victims in this state?
That's a decision that will have to come fairly quickly, won't it?
Well, he can leave the court vacant, that spot vacant, as long as he wants. It's difficult for the court to function when it's 3-3 because you could end up with tie votes. So it does make sense to fill it rather quickly. Of course, we'll also be watching, Michael Patrick. You may remember when this happened last summer, the Republicans were quick to accuse Governor Granholm of some backroom deal, right? Justice Weaver left. Alton Davis was appointed. Well, are we going to see the same thing now? Is Governor Snyder making some backroom deal to get Corrigan off the court and then appoint somebody there? So he's going to have a lot of questions to answer in terms of transparency. How did you reach this decision? What were the considerations involved, et cetera?
You recognize a lot of faces in the Snyder administration from the Engler administration.
Yes, and I think again that's contrary to the rhetoric that we've heard from him, saying, "Look, I want to be moderate. I don't want to be divisive." But also in the whole sense of I want to do things new and be innovative. I haven't heard a single innovative idea out of Rick Snyder. What we've seen are the recycling of old ideas. Even this 2-year budget idea, that's a gimmick that we've heard mentioned before. It's done in a couple of other states, I think less than a dozen other states. It doesn't solve the problem of what could be a more than $3 billion revenue shortage. Whether it's in 1 year or 2 years, what are the cuts? How are you going to do this? We're not interested in process. We're interested in substance.
Well, we'll stay tuned along the way, right? It'll be good to keep in touch with you.
Absolutely. Lots to do. We haven't even talked today about the Congress or the new Attorney General, the new Secretary of State. There are a lot of folks that have got to be held accountable in the next 2 years.
All right, we'll catch up on that 1 week from now, if not before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael Patrick.
Mark Brewer, the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party. Television viewers, thanks for being with us this morning. Radio listeners, stay right where you are. There's another hour headed your way. Have you ever thought about knocking off your spouse? We'll talk to someone who has, and what happened afterward when we get back. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Well, there obviously will be people who say, give Rick Snyder a chance. He just got into office. And, there'll be some people say he deserves a little bit of a honeymoon period. The Republicans, though, still kind of maneuvering for power, and Saul Anusis, who used to be Mark Brewer's counterpart at the Michigan Republican Party, once again wants to be the National Republican Party chair, and so he is facing off with 6 candidates, including the incumbent Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele. And you'll remember that Michael Steele beat Saul Anusis last time around, but Saul Anusis is at it again, and they had a debate yesterday. And the candidates for Republican National Committee Chair had this debate, and Michael Steele said, quote, "When I began my job in 2009, we couldn't find anyone to say they were a Republican, let alone run," end quote. And the Republicans were out of vogue when President Obama was elected, but how quickly things have changed. And now Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, the Republican in California, who had left office, term limited, and in came Jerry Brown, a Democratic retread from the 70s. But anyway, here was the debate yesterday, and Saul Anusis did get a chance to speak his piece in this debate, and here's what he said.
We stopped voting like Republicans, we stopped acting like Republicans, and we stopped talking about the issues that the American public believed in. This is a center-right nation. This is a country that believes in our fundamental conservative principles. When we act and talk and work like Republicans, we win. When we start acting and voting like Democrats, we lose. So I think our biggest problem over the last 10 years is we stopped acting like Republicans. We lost faith and belief in the fact that we are a conservative party and we represent conservative principles, and therefore we paid the price for it. And this time around, we got a second chance. That's all it is. It's a second chance and an opportunity for Republicans to start acting like Republicans, or the voters will throw us out again.
Ann Doyle with Ann Doyle Strategies is a journalist. She was an auto executive and now a speaker, leadership consultant, Auburn Hills City Councilwoman, and soon-to-be author with her book, Powering Up, How America's Women Achievers Become Leaders. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick, and I loved your comment about how quickly things change.
They do, don't they? We talked earlier this hour with Susie Merchant, the Michigan State women's basketball coach. She is off to the hottest start in Michigan State women's basketball history this season, and also the winningest coach in her first 3 years ever at Michigan State. We talked about leadership and so forth, and she allowed that it's different coaching women than men in some cases. And she said, I asked her if she's ever made one of her players cry, and she said yes, she did, but she didn't really mean to. I'm wondering, from Governor Snyder's standpoint down the street here at the headquarters, are you, when you look at his administration, which was rolled out over the last couple of weeks and inaugurated on Saturday, do you see the kind of diversity you would have expected?
You know, Michael Patrick, I'm disappointed with it. And one of the words that's been used a lot in the past couple of weeks to describe the appointments and the kind of administration he's going to have is diverse, and that what they're really talking about is he's crossed the aisle and things. But in terms of half of the human race, I'm very disappointed in terms of the number of women that he has appointed and into his inner circle and into the major positions. And you know, frankly, I'm really getting tired of it. I'm really getting very tired of this being just the latest example of good old taxation without representation. You know, we're way, way, way past the years of saying there aren't enough women. There are tons of highly educated, highly skilled, highly experienced, skilled women, and yet his inner circle, I was looking at it, you know, you may have seen the papers over the weekend, you know, the front page. I mean, you've got all of the governor and his major inner circle are white men. Nothing wrong with white men. There's just too many of them in these powerful positions. And of the 16 positions in his cabinet appointed so far, there's 3 women. Now, that's not even a quarter. And to me, it's unacceptable.
The word is this morning that the Michigan Supreme Court Justice Maura Corrigan is going to go into his administration and lead up the Department of Human Services. So then the question will be, is he sort of bound to replace her on the Supreme Court with another woman?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Maura Corrigan has been a tremendous champion of foster children in particular, and I think that'd be an interesting job for her. Interesting enough, we have actually a very unusual situation on our Supreme Court right now in Michigan where we have 4 women and 3 men. So if Maura Corrigan leaves, I would be astonished if he appointed a woman to fill her spot. Probably going to shift the balance again to 4 men and 3 women. So probably lose a spot there.
Your neighboring city, Troy, has put in a distracted driver law that prohibits people from using the cell phone, eating, personal hygiene, texting, of course, is already banned. But you really can't do anything else but drive in Troy. What do you make of that decision?
It's good to alert people to that from all over the state. If you're coming into southeast Michigan, and Troy is, I go through Troy all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and absolutely anything. You can be stopped by the police for it. Eating a bagel, I mean, they want 2 hands on the wheel. And, of course, you're not talking on a cell phone, and you're not putting on makeup or doing, holding the coffee, any of those things. So I think we're probably going to see more of that, Michael Patrick.
All right, we will stay tuned. AnnDoyleStrategies.com is where you can find Ann Doyle if you want to reach out to her. Her book is called Powering Up. Television viewers, now we're going to say goodbye. Radio listeners, stay right where you are. There's another hour of this. Right after the news, it's Michael Patrick Shields.
Come and play. Bye now. Goodbye, goodbye, good friends.